Welcome to another Alumni and Management series. As you know, the AIM series is designed to provide our audience with a targeted conversation featuring a Monmouth University alumnus working in some management capacity out there in the professional world. Our hope is that what you learn listening to the AIM series speakers will be closely aligned to what you might learn from a professional development seminar when you're working full-time in your careers. So the Leon Hess Business School is happy to provide this type of programming to help give you a bit of a head start on the competition. Before we get going tonight, I have a brief video welcome from the Dean of the Business School, Dean Raj Devasagayam.
Welcome to the Alumni in Management series. This is a series of one-on-one conversations that's designed to bring in the expertise and experience of emergent leaders to our classrooms. We in the Leon Hess Business School believe that your learning outside the classroom is truly essential to supplement our learning inside the classroom. As you listen to the conversation this evening, focus in and relate it to your own experience, your own professional experience from jobs, from internships, and see what you can learn that would be of help to you right away, in the near future as you approach the job market, and in the distant future as you craft your own leadership path. My thanks to Professor Palazzolo for organizing this event. I must mention that he's a proud alum of Monmouth himself. My thanks also to the alumni for bringing in their expertise and experience, sharing it with us so generously, and most of all, for the time and effort you're putting in to giving back something to our institution. Thank you. Finally, I thank each one of you for attending. I hope you learned something new today that you can apply beginning tomorrow. Enjoy.
So thank you, Dean Devasagayam, for welcoming us to the AIM series tonight. Tonight, we welcome Danny Agyeman to the AIM series. And to start, we'll play a brief video of Danny introducing himself to everyone. So check it out.
What's up? My name is Danny Agyeman, Monmouth University alumni, class of 2015, and I play running back for this prestigious university. Go Hawks! I was born in the Bronx, relocated to New Jersey at a young age, and I am a first-generation Ghanaian American. My mother and father were both professionals. My mom was a nurse assistant, and my father was a college professor. Growing up, I was a triathlete. I ran track, I played basketball, and I played football. I currently am the owner of B&B Athletics, which is a speed, footwork, and agility program that is tailored to high-level athletes that want to achieve their goals by playing at the next level and receiving funding while doing so. I trained over 30 Division I athletes that now are currently excelling not only on the field but also in the classroom. I chose Monmouth University due to many factors. One of them, the most important actually, was the Leon Hess Business School. As we all know, Leon Hess Business School is one of the most prestigious business schools in the nation, and it bolstered me to where I am today. I chose business as my major because I always knew I wanted to work for myself and establish a speed and training program to help the youth not only excel on the field, but mentally prepare themselves for what they ultimately want their dreams to be.
Awesome. Awesome. Thank you. Thank you for the self-introduction, Danny. After watching your introductory video, do you think there's anything else we should know about you before we get going?
Well, I want everybody to know that these past 3 weeks, my Hawks have been 3-0, and we did have a program changing win about 2 weeks ago. So I just want everybody to know, go Hawks.
Love it. Love it. Love it. Well, I want to start by taking a little bit more of a look into your personal background. So maybe you could give us a little bit more of your personal background, your history, everything leading up to before you joined us here at Monmouth.
So growing up, I still kind of am due to the business, but sports was essentially a first love of mine. I realized growing up to play sports at every higher level, you had to be educated. Um, in that sense, I really focused on being the best that I could be at every aspect of life, just because I knew winning was a part of my mind state, whether it be on the field, on the basketball court, or in the classroom. My parents instilled that in me at a young age, just because I am a first generation African American, where they were originally born and raised. Their lifestyle was nothing compared to mine. So me being blessed for the opportunities that I had, I tried to take full advantage of those when I was given the opportunity.
What is it that led you to sports? You mentioned in the video you were a triathlete growing up. What was the draw for you with sports?
I just feel like I'm one of five siblings.
Hmm.
My older brothers played sports. So I feel like it was kind of like once my eyes were open, I felt like a ball was in my hand. I don't know. And um, being around that environment, that competitive environment, whether it be sports, whether it be, I don't know, drawing, anything that had some sort of competitive nature as a kid, I always found myself losing and I hated it because I was younger and I had older brothers. So me being in that environment just, I feel like gave me a mindset of, oh, I just hate being the last one or hate being in a position where I don't feel like I'm doing the best that I can. So I feel like that's what kind of pushed me to be in that way.
I got to tell you, it's interesting to hear, your older brothers, or, they're beating you, because I've watched you compete, and I can't imagine anyone beating you at anything, even the older brothers. I have an older brother too. He used to beat me at sports when we were younger, so I get it. I get it.
Yeah.
You mentioned that you're a first generation Ghanaian student here
Yes.
in college. Talk to us a little bit about what that felt like, the approach to being a college student when you're first generation. I know it's different. I was a first generation student as well, so I felt it. But I wonder what your experience was like.
I feel like in my household, like I said, it was just school and sports. So being in that environment consistently made my mind believe like I was going to college regardless of what was going on. And my parents in Ghana, education is everything because not everybody can receive an education. In the States, it's essentially free for us, but through taxes and if you go to private school, you pay your way through, but through taxes and things like that, public school is paid for. But back in Ghana, if you want to go to school, period, whether it be private or public, you had to pay. And it wasn't through taxes. You paid your taxes, then you paid for your education from kindergarten through high school. So the the value of education was, I guess, at an extreme high just because, the way they went through their process was much different from how I went through mine.
It's amazing how the experiences that our family, in this case our parents, have play a deep role in our own lives, particularly when it comes to education. It's a good
Right.
point. It's a good point. I often think Americans don't realize the great value that we get for the free public education from when you're very little through 12th grade in this
Right.
country. It's not like that everywhere on the planet. It's not like that everywhere.
Right.
In places like Ghana, you gotta pay for it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So tell us about coming to Monmouth University specifically. I've watched you compete. I'm sure you had offers all over. What brought you to Monmouth?
So in high school, I ended up going out to a school in Ohio called Tiffin University. And my first year there, it was much different. And I didn't really get accustomed to that lifestyle in Ohio. So after my freshman year, I played there. I reached out to a couple universities on the East Coast, and they had interest from me from high school. So I knew about Monmouth. I went to Lodi High School, and Miles Austin, he's one of the Hawk greats. He went to Garfield High School, and Garfield and Lodi were rivals. So him going to that school, everybody knew like how prestigious it was just because of his path. So that was definitely one of the top schools that if I had an opportunity to go to and somehow, some way, get some financial aid, whether it be scholarship or through grants, anything like that, I would definitely take it into consideration. And it worked out the way it did. And Monmouth was, my choice that I made.
And I'm glad that you did. I'm glad that you
Me
did.
too.
You also mentioned uh, the Leon Hess Business School. So you make the decision you're coming to Monmouth. Of course, football's a big part of that, but there's the education component. What made you want to study business?
So I just knew growing up, I always wanted to have my own business. I had somebody that was extremely influential in my life. His name was EJ Barthel. Right now, currently, he is the running back coach at Nebraska University. But he actually opened up um, a training business, and I was actually one of his first clients that worked under him. So when I was with him, and I saw how he approached things. He was very, very detail oriented. And I was like, oh, this guy's not just a jock. Like he seems actually pretty smart. Everything was broken down. I was like, so what did you do when you went to college? And he told me he went to school for business. He just took that mentality from sports and poured it into what he truly loved. And he took his training business and it exploded across the East Coast. And now he's one of the best coaches in the nation at Nebraska. So I'm trying to take the blueprint and run with it. But the business mindset was actually instilled through him. Well, he instilled it through me for me to take that route in college.
It's interesting. There's influence from your parents when it comes to your education, and now
Mm-hmm.
influence from this mentor when it comes to your business life. So let's talk. We're talk more about football in a minute, but let's talk about the business life. Take us
Mm-hmm.
along your career path. So you get to Monmouth, you play football, you graduate. Um, did you have any internships you were able to do as an undergraduate? Any work experience that led you into this?
Unfortunately, no. If you like I said, we were just talking about football, but we're gonna go back to business. In college, like some people do. Unfortunately I didn't play. I just felt like I didn't have the time. And to me, our program in the Leon Hess Business School was very rigorous. So the workload I felt like was a lot, plus my football schedule was a lot for me. So I didn't really have time to venture off into any internships. I also was taking summer classes. I actually took your class in the summer. So it was like football school, football school. So it was kind of rough for me. So I didn't take any internships, but I just stuck to my regimen in the sense of school and work being like my job with football. I felt like at the school.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that was almost 10 years ago that I had you. It feels like yesterday, 10 years ago. Can you believe
Right,
it?
crazy.
It's incredible. You make a good point. I teach a lot of student athletes, going back to 10 years ago through uh, about an hour ago when I was in the classroom. And
Crazy.
it is. And you're right. The life of a student athlete is the life of having an internship or running a part-time job, except for the fact that you're constantly surrounded by athletics. I mean, there's a lot of time management that you have to learn. There's a lot of prioritizing of tasks you have to learn to be successful. And you were successful at it. So you were successful managing all this while you were a football player here. Let's talk about after graduation. What's the first profession you get yourself into? How do you get out there as a working professional now?
So the worst, it was actually the worst. Yes, no, I'm kidding. The first job that I actually started working out of school once I graduated was NYSL Promotions. It was a marketing firm, but it was something that I needed to gain capital because I found myself out of school. I had a little bit of money, but I didn't really have too much money. So I couldn't really invest in my own company, ultimately what I wanted to do. So I had to work, I had to, set the foundation for myself. So when I got that opportunity, I made the most of it. I became a leader in the program. What we did was we were a third party company. We basically uh, built our own team, and then we had companies that we were basically selling products for. It was pretty cool. I'm not gonna lie, I learned a lot through it. That's definitely something that I appreciated about the opportunity, learning about how to work with a team and how to build a business and just be able to crunch numbers extremely fast, things like that. That was really unique about it.
You pick up all these skills, even in jobs and professions that are not going to be long-term careers. You still pick up the skills, and it sounds like that was the case for you. So at
For
some
sure.
point, you decide you're going to move on from that company. What comes next?
So I worked there for about a year, and I started seeing myself trying to revert back to what I originally wanted to do. But like I said, like I didn't really have too much capital. So once I gained a little bit of money, I started investing in myself. And then I got a great partner to this day, ETS, fantastic partner of mine. I love them and everything that they helped me do. It's one of the main facilities that I still utilize to this day because I work at multiple locations when I have my business. But once I started branching off, started working with more kids, and they knew from my pedigree of playing at the high school level and in the college level and a little bit of pro, I started gaining more clientele, and it's been close to what 7 years now, where I like really started grinding, and essentially putting myself where I am today in my own business.
And that's how many small businesses start. Someone, they start off with a partner, and then they like you say, they grind it out, and they say, you know what, I could do this, and then they start their own small business. Before we get to your small business, before we get to talking about B&B Athletics, which I want to talk about because I'm sure there's a lot there that the students would love to hear. Tell us
Mhm.
about some of the schools you've worked at, some of the work you've done with those football programs.
Yeah, so I worked with Don Bosco Prep. I was there last season as a running back coach. Uh, I still work with a bunch of kids like that. I worked with Bergen Catholic. I've worked with Safe Tech. I've worked with pretty much most of the high schools in northern New Jersey. And just being amongst people that have been in this realm longer than I have been, and understanding how they go about their process of developing kids and having intellectual conversation with kids that are obviously much younger than us, because every generation is different. You have to learn how to adapt and understand their thought process, even though, we all are similar in the sense because we've been there, but some of the things that they're experiencing, I never experienced. Like, for example, Instagram. Instagram wasn't Instagram didn't become prevalent until I was in college. I can't even imagine myself having Instagram in high school. So we have to let the kids know how to go about their business when they're trying to, get to the next level. Because now you have 18-year-old kids with some of these NIL deals playing in college, and it's like some of the money that they're seeing, I never couldn't even fathom. So it's real.
You know, the social media thing is very interesting, Danny. So I'm a little bit older than you. I was in high school in the late '90s, and I try to explain to my students in Instagram. It wasn't even the thought of social media. It wasn't even a thought, and let alone phones. I mean, there was a payphone in the lobby
Right.
of the high school, and that's the phone that we
Right.
a cell phone. It was a crazy idea. So I feel you.
Crazy.
You know, you bring up an interesting point though. And by the way, for our listeners and the folks who will eventually listen to us on YouTube when this gets posted, the schools that Danny's talking about when it comes to football in New Jersey, these are powerhouse football schools. You know, Bosco, Bergen Catholic, these are powerhouse schools. So I appreciate that you're working with elite level high school athletes. But you bring up a good point about how the issues that they have to deal with, the concerns, the priorities on their mind, totally different than what you were thinking about when you
For
were in
sure.
high school.
For
So
sure.
just for a minute or two, maybe go a little bit deeper about how you kind of coach these kids on that life aspect, because it's more than just performance on the field, it's performance in life. Maybe how do you talk to them about that?
Right. So little things, man. I just try to let them know, for one, that even though sometimes they may feel like, oh, he's much older than me, he doesn't know, or he has never experienced some of the things that I'm going through. You might be right in some situations, but most of us have been around, the block in a sense, and when they have a situation that they may think that I might not be able to relate to, just because you're going through it doesn't mean nobody else has ever been through it. So I try to have the kids always understand you can open up to me, because a lot of things happen off the field, not just on the field, off the field. And that's where the hard part is for them, because at the end of the day, we're all human beings. Everybody has a life. Everybody goes through what they go through. And, with all the things coming out with, um, mental issues and kids not being able to decipher, okay, well, this is happening in my life. Can I relate this to somebody? Or this is happening in my life. Should I keep this to myself and just see if I can tough it through, because that's what I'm taught as an athlete or just as an individual in life? Because if you're soft in life, you're never going to make it. Sometimes you might have to talk to somebody, and that's something that I try to let them know about daily. And I just feel like I had somebody in my life that gave me an open door in a sense, where I didn't even have to question that. And I try to be that individual for some, no, not some, all the athletes that I work with. Some kids open up more than others, but at the end of the day, I try to let them know, like, bro, I'm here for you, man. And if you ever need me, don't feel like, oh, just because I work with you through athletics, I can't help you in life. Because trust me, most of the lessons that I was taught, was through athletics and in education. So that's where I'm at.
Yeah, and at some point here in a bit, I'm going to ask you that very question. You've given us a preview of it. What is it that you learned on the field that you carry with you into life? And we'll get to that here in a moment. I do want to say that I appreciate that you are there for the folks you work with. That is a part of working with young people today that may not have been as prevalent 10 years ago, 20 years ago, certainly before then. There are so many resources available to help young folks with things like mental health and things like even just you're struggling a little bit. Maybe it's not a mental health issue, it's just maybe you've overbooked yourself, maybe you've taken on too much. And there are folks like you, thankfully, that are out there that are going to help people through those
Right.
issues. So now let's talk about BNB athletics. At some point, you decide, let's make this thing happen. Take us inside
Right.
that thought process. And what does it look like in the beginning?
So everybody understands and everybody knows COVID, right? We all know what happened during 2020. And I essentially had my back against the wall. A lot of people were losing jobs and things like that. And I looked at it as an opportunity, because like I said, I had a partner for about three years. I was actually under ETS, working through ETS specifically, 3 4 years, something like that. And once COVID happened, um, ETS shut down for an extended period of time. Most people were out of work. They were still trying to find work. If they were working remotely. So I found myself with my back against the wall, and I said, I'm gonna bet on myself. And I did. I opened up my LLC, and once I opened up my LLC, it's crazy because for most people, COVID was like, well, it was pretty sad for me, but I feel like that was the biggest play I ever made in my life. I created my LLC, and from there, it just shot, and I didn't look back ever since. And now I can't even tell you how many clientele, but I have so many kids that I work with, and I'm grateful for all the people that, helped me get to where I am. And I'm still nowhere near where I feel like this business can be, because I'm still a small business, but I'm growing day by day. And I'm thankful for all the people that have been in my corner to help me, and you still work with me to this day.
Oh, I want to talk about all of this, Danny. This is great. So take us into the process of forming the LLC and starting. What are the roadblocks? Do you remember anything popping up where you said, what is this? What is this all about?"
Crazy story. You ready? So I'm training. Okay, because I have different clientele. So one of the kids that I'm training, their mother was a lawyer. So COVID happened, the gym is closed. She's like, "Oh, you can come to my yard and you can work with my son in my yard." And I was like, "Okay, cool." So I'm working with her son in the yard, and I'm like, and I've been talking to her. I'm like, "Yeah, I'm thinking about creating my own LLC." And she was like, "I can help you do it. Just give me your information and I'll create it for you." And I was like, "You're kidding." And then I paid her. She did it for me, and that's how I went. Crystal Piazza. I'll never forget it. That's how that started, the LLC. And then from there, once I got the LLC, I felt like now I'm really doing it. Because there's a lot of people that create things and they just go with the flow. But once you start a true business and you start investing in that business, it becomes a reality. So that was kind of my building block for me to actually continue to grow.
It does give you a feeling of increased legitimacy, doesn't it? Once you've got that
Right.
legal document saying, "Hey, I'm a real business." Now,
Right.
I was going to ask you, where does the first client come from? It sounds like it's her son. So where does the next client come from then?
This is crazy. Um, Nolan James. Yes. So he's right now, I would, in my opinion, in high school at least, be one of the top players in New Jersey. He actually committed to Boston College, running back for DePaul Catholic. He's going crazy right now because we are in football season. And yeah, I started training him. He was at the time, I think around 8 years old, because he's the nephew of EJ Barthel, who is still to this day my mentor. So essentially, I was pretty much working with him, and I was thinking about all the tricks of the trade that I can think of at the time, and I just threw it at him because he was so young, and now he's falling out. It's crazy.
I love that. I love that cycle that your
It's
mentor's
crazy.
nephew becomes one of your clients. That's
Yeah,
awesome. That's awesome.
it's crazy.
Let me ask you, as a small business owner, you got a client, you got another one, the third one comes along, you got the fourth client. At what point do you go, "Well, I got a real business here. I got something that's got legs to it."
When you feel like you don't have enough time in the day to work, that's what it feels like. But yeah, man, it's just like you think about it, and it's kind of like and it's crazy because I started by myself, and well, not by myself. I shouldn't say that because I do have a partner, but through BNB, I started to grow, and I have like a media team that helps me now. They're creating so many more things that are coming along for me, which is great. Uh, my website is actually going fantastic. I have merchandise that I've been trying to spread across all of North Jersey, and the whole, tri-state area. And I'm just, trying to gradually expand as much as I can and just, one, be someone that is not just working to work, but someone that's working to inspire, because I've been inspired to be in the position that I'm in. So I look at things like that. And I feel like, one, you want to always have an ethical mindset, because when you do things the right way, great things happen.
This is a 10-year payoff for me being your ethics professor.
This is crazy.
That
I'll never forget you, man. I swear.
that 10 years later you come into an AIM series and talk about being an ethical professional. Good for you. You make me feel good hearing that. So let's then talk about what's going on out there in the larger business climate and how it might be impacting your business. We know that there are economic factors that play out there, things like inflation, the job market's a little bit rocky. Have you seen some of that reflected in your work with your business?
Yeah, definitely. It's like I have to understand the market, and when I scale out my model, for my quarter, because quarterly I try to meet a certain quota and just make sure that I'm doing things the right way, like I said. Not only just ethically, but financially for myself to keep my business afloat. Because my profit margin, I always try to be plus 60% of that, but I have to understand certain things, like inflation. I have to take that into consideration. And our economy right now is actually doing relatively okay. Since August, we're actually 2.5% up. No, pardon me, down, I should say, in inflation. But things like that I have to take into consideration, because, pricing has to match the market value. So I can't say, okay, well, I'm going to charge you $1 million today. People are going to be like, I'm never going to work with you. So I have to understand, where I'm at for the product, and where I'm at, where I can charge, things like that.
Yeah, and it's interesting because I would wager if someone did a large study on this, that they would see when the rate of inflation begins to decrease, like you're suggesting, which and the data backs that, that new disposable income that families might be experiencing, that's you. They can now afford to send their son or their daughter, whoever you're training, to a place like B&B Athletics.
Exactly. Exactly.
Which is why, for the folks listening, that's why as a small business owner, you got to be aware of what's going on in the larger market around you. Let's now go back to what I wanted to talk about before, which you already gave us a preview of, lessons from football that you take with you into the professional world. There's some things that stand out from your experience competing that now you use those lessons as a business professional.
For sure, that's without question. One in particular is just work ethic. I just realized, like, for me, I always found myself just trying to be one of the hardest workers in the room, just because I know the harder you go, the more respect you gain, regardless if you're the most talented or not. Because if you don't have as much talent as the next guy, somebody's going to say at the end of their sentence, he works hard though. And I always want that to be said about me. So work ethic is definitely something that was instilled in me, just because I know I have to be one of the hardest workers. Also having uh, a mind state of just being competitive, because you can work really hard but not compete. When you're competitive and you hate losing more than you love to win, you find yourself in very good situations. Essentially, if you do win, not being in a corner, jumping up and down and think, well, I just did it. When you win, it's like, I want more. But when you lose, you're devastated. And that feeling eats you more than you being happy about getting a win. So I just try to keep that mentality, because you're not always going to win. That's not life. It's physically impossible. There's only one team ever in NFL history to go undefeated, and there hasn't been one since. So you're not always going to win. But understanding that mindset of just wanting to be competitive, wanting to always put your best foot forward in anything you do, you know, has helped me in life look at that same model and just continue to strive to be that way, regardless of what I do, whether it's in this business or anything I do, period.
Those are great lessons from football, really from athletics in general. And there is something to be said here in the professional world for having a competitive drive. So are you
Mhm.
the one that's going to show up to work, punch the clock, do your gig, and go home and say, well, I guess I'll do that again tomorrow? Or are you the one, if you translate this to the professional world, are you the one who goes to work, punches the clock, and says, all right, how am I going to attack this day and do even more? How am I going to advance myself even more? I love that that's something you learned from football and that you bring it with you today.
Exactly.
What
Appreciate
about the
you.
classroom? What about the class? We talked about ethics already. What else do you remember from your work as a student that you bring with you to the professional world?
So, in your class, right, I remember in your ethics, diversity, and social responsibility class, our CSR. So, for everybody that's listening, CSR, right, all right, is corporate social responsibility, right? Giving yourself a goal, right? Giving yourself a goal, understanding what you're trying to do, then having, a mindset to sustain that, right, long term. Then from there, right, being responsible about it, understanding like there's things that you have to sacrifice in life to achieve where you're trying to go. And then the biggest aspect about it, being ethically sound, right? Understanding that there's a lot of people in this world, different type of people in this world. Not everybody has experienced what you experience. Not everybody thinks the way you do. So being open-minded, being very respectful, right? Just understanding, okay, I was brought up this way. That doesn't mean this individual thinks the same way I do. So maybe I need to have a conversation with them to think, or to be more open-minded, to be responsive to where they're coming from about anything that's going on. So that's definitely something that I took with me from your class. I remember actually writing our final paper. You don't remember because you grade a lot of papers, but our final, and I got an A- in the class too. Appreciate you, dog. I worked for it though. um, I remember writing about Jordan, Michael Jordan, and he, when he first got into the NBA, his first couple seasons, he was doing great, phenomenal, but he had to face an obstacle. And back then, basketball was a little different. And it's not like how it is today. They were a lot more aggressive and things were going on the court that you can't do today. And he wasn't one of those type of players that was going to get up and just fight you and spit on you and things like that. So he went the route of me just getting better. I'm not going to beat you up because you're beating me up. I'm going to beat you and then walk off the court and look at you and point at the scoreboard. And that was something that kind of instilled in me, and it was really cool. I just remember writing about that. But yeah,
I realize I'm gonna take the clip of this video and now play it for all the ethics classes through talking about
it
corporate
is what it
social
is, man. I appreciate you, man.
responsibility. That's great. I did ask the registrants. We had over 70 people register for the conversation tonight. If they wanted to submit some questions, several of them submitted a question. Since we're talking about Monmouth, do you have a favorite Monmouth memory? I figure we'll hit on that one, and then we'll move along with some other parts of the conversation.
Okay. Um, Favorite Monmouth memory. There's so many, man. It's like it happened so long ago, but sometimes I feel like it was yesterday. Crazy. Over 10 years. Favorite Monmouth memory. I mean, it's gonna be football related, so sorry guys if you think it's in the classroom. uh, I remember we played at Lehigh. Lehigh was actually nationally ranked FCS. This was my senior year, and it was like a crazy comeback win. One of my roommates, Neil Sterling, he had a phenomenal game, and he caught like a game-winning touchdown, and just the jubilation was just it was crazy. I just remember being on the field because we were there at Lehigh. Just remember being on the field and just like because I was actually at that time was a program changing when now we're being FBS programs. Monmouth, man, keep going. I'm proud of you guys, but yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, those athletic moments, they stay with us. And you're right,
Yeah,
man. That big
sure.
win we had the other day, that was a statement win.
Yeah,
Um, I love that athletic moments make those indelible marks in our mind. I remember being a high school senior playing in Giant Stadium in the state championship game, the old Giant Stadium because I'm old.
yeah,
And and I remember the first play of the game, the opposing team ran the ball right down the sideline. Thankfully, the guy was out of bounds, so they had to call it back. But I
right.
remember turning around on the field, looking up, and the size of the video screen was overwhelming. It's just a random thing you remember. Of course, we won that game, thank God. So let me ask you now for some advice you may have for the students. You know, what advice do you have for today's undergraduates about being successful as students and being successful in the professional world?
Okay, first, as a student, do not be afraid to get a tutor. That is what got me through my senior year for sure. Because, like I said, my program, my entire schedule was, bro, it was crazy senior year because the class that I was taking plus football, it was jam packed, and I couldn't do it on my own. Well, I could have, but I wouldn't have had the success that I felt like I could have had because I had a tutor. I had two tutors my senior year, I remember. So do not be afraid to get a tutor. Like that's actually recommended. And I'm sure the professors let you guys know that for sure. Cause they let me know that. That's one. And what was the second question?
How might they be successful in the professional world? What's your
The
advice for
professional world, right?
today's undergraduates when they get to the professional world?
Once you guys start working, don't be afraid to work. What that means is don't look at it like, oh, well, I graduated with this degree and I'm not going to get a job with the degree that I have. Like, no, don't think like that. Work, make a little bit of money to actually put yourself in a better position to where you want to be. Because my first job was at NYSL Promotions, and yes, I had to use my degree to get that opportunity. But ultimately, what I really wanted to do is what I'm doing today. And at the time, I was a broke college graduate. I had no money. And not saying that everybody's situation might be like mine, but I needed capital to invest into what I got going on today. So my word of advice is work. Don't think, oh, well, I applied here and I didn't get this job. So I'm just going to sit around and keep applying to similar jobs because it's hard. It's hard. It's hard. So right when you get out, work, regardless of what it is, keep applying to whatever dream job you're trying to get, but don't sit around and just think that it's going to fall in your lap right away because there's a lot of people that are trying to get the same opportunities that you are, and you might not get it right away. That doesn't mean give up, but don't just sit around and think it's going to fall in your lap. Work, 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 and then continue to pursue what you really want to do, but work.
Great advice. Great advice. Be persistent. Stay
Right.
resilient when the dream job says no, stay resilient and go find the next dream job. Good.
Exactly.
Great advice. I'm going to ask you for some parting words of wisdom for the students, but before we get to that, um, there was a question that came in about being a business owner. What do you look for if you're hiring someone to work for your business? What are some of the qualities that you look for in people that you might hire to work for you?
So the first thing that I actually, because right now I have a couple people that are on my team that we all work together. The first thing that I ask is their time frame. How much time are you willing to put in? Are you just gonna clock in when I ask you to clock in? Are you gonna do, you know, things that are going to put you over the edge in my eyes, where I feel like you can really help us grow together. Because if you win, I win. If I win, you win. So that's for sure. I asked them about how much time they're willing to put in, not just on the clock. If I get an answer that I like, which I did from somebody that's on my media team right now, I'm going to take this thing to another level. We're going to take it together. So that's definitely something that I ask. And charisma, like you see how we're having an engaging conversation. I feel like when people buy a product, they don't just buy the product. If you look at a bottle of water, there's so many different companies that create a bottle of water, but everybody has their preference. Some people like Dasani, some people like Poland Spring, so who you are as a person will shed light on your product. And that's how I feel like people will, ultimately gravitate to what you got going on. So charisma for sure.
Love it. Well, I'm also going to take this clip of the video and use it for my students in the class. You're hitting on all the high points. Another question came in, which is actually the inverse. Has there ever been a time when someone tried to work with you, or you hired someone and you kind of had to let them go, or maybe break off the relationship because there was something lacking in their skill set? And the question here is, can you talk about what might have been lacking?
Yeah, for sure. Like everybody has their different mentalities in life, but I feel like working with close friends is great if the relationship can stay platonic and everything is copacetic. But sometimes when you're working with close friends, the vision might get a little blurred just because of the friendship factor. You know what I mean? So just be mindful of that. I've been in a situation where I've had somebody that was close to me, that we were friends, and we're still friends, but the business aspect, their mentality wasn't, I don't want to say that. Their mentality was similar to mine. It was just the execution factor wasn't the same as mine. So that was definitely one of the issues that I've experienced. So everybody's different. Every scenario is different. Just be mindful of when you go into business, try to understand friendships are great, but if you incorporate friendships, a lot of times with business, things don't always pan out the way they're supposed to, just because they might not work the same way as you. That doesn't mean they can't still be a great friend, but it's just execution may be different, and they're your friends. So you might look at it like, oh, well, it's my friend, so I'll do this. If you don't know that person, your previous relations as friends, then it'll be much easier for you to look at them and say, all right, bro, this is not going to work. So I appreciate you being where you were with me, but going forward, I don't think we can keep the same relationship. And it's kind of hard to do that with a close friend of yours because they're already your friend. So
It's always difficult. You're right. There's fun, there's excitement, there's enthusiasm working with your friends, but then sometimes there's those hard conversations, and they really do become even harder because it's your friend.
yeah, exactly.
This conversation has been great, Danny. I thank you for your time. Thank you for sharing your wisdom with the students and everyone who's going to watch this video. And so now I'm going to ask you my final question, which is if you have any parting words of wisdom for the students. Again, we've got over 50 of our closest friends here with us tonight, and so many more will watch online. What are some parting words of wisdom you have for everyone?
It's just grind, man. That's it. I mean, I'll say this. When you're given an opportunity, right? Because everybody thinks they deserve opportunities, but sometimes you might not get them. And if you do get them, you have to make the most of it, because you're not always going to get that same opportunity. You're not. So when you're given an opportunity, capitalize. And when you point a finger at somebody, remember, three are pointing right back at you. So look at yourself in the mirror, understand that, having a mindset of drivenness is going to get you a lot more opportunities. And when you do get that opportunity, capitalized. And if things don't work out, look in the mirror, man. Don't try to point fingers, because once you start pointing fingers, you start having less accountability. And once you start having less accountability, you start feeling sorry for yourself. And nobody really cares. They don't. So be driven, hold yourself accountable, look in the mirror, and capitalize on those opportunities.
Great. Great. Thank you, Danny. Thank you for joining us tonight for the AIM series. Thank you to everyone who came out to listen. We appreciate you sharing your knowledge with everyone, and we appreciate you spending your time with us. Thank you very much.
I appreciate you for having me. Professor Polidalo, keep doing your thing. You are the man. Appreciate you.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you. Good night, everyone.
All right.